The velvet box sat open on my dresser, its satin lining as empty as the space in my chest. For 40 years, that small box had held something priceless. My late wife Eleanor's gold necklace, a heart-shaped locket she never took off. Now it was gone. I stood there, motionless, my fingers trembling against the drawer handle. The box seemed to stare back at me, accusing me of neglect, whispering that I'd failed to guard the last piece of her I had left. Downstairs, my daughter's voice cut through the quiet. "Dad, breakfast's getting cold." Jennifer's tone was sharp, impatient, the kind of voice that carried more command than care. In the background, I could hear Michael, her husband, laughing over the blare of a sports channel. My granddaughter, Amber, was on the phone again, her voice light and careless, complaining about how boring Phoenix was compared to California. It was supposed to be a quiet morning. Today marked Eleanor's birthday, the third one since she'd passed. I had planned to spend it alone with the necklace and the memories that still felt warm if I thought about them long enough. But instead, I was staring at an empty box, and my home no longer felt like mine. I searched every inch of my bedroom, pulled the drawers from their frames, checked under the bed, behind the dresser, even inside the closet pockets Eleanor used to sew herself. Nothing, just dust and fragments of my own panic. My chest tightened, that same suffocating weight I hadn't felt since the hospital, since those final hours when her hand went cold in mine, and I'd realized there was nothing left I could fix. I went downstairs, step by slow step. Michael was stretched across my couch, his boots on the armrest, a half-eaten bag of chips balanced on his chest. Amber sat cross-legged on the floor, scrolling her phone. Jennifer stood at the counter, chopping vegetables with a kind of rage disguised as focus. "Jennifer," I said quietly, trying to sound calm, "have you seen Eleanor's necklace?" She didn't look up. "Check your room, Dad. You probably misplaced it again." "I've already checked," I said. "It's gone." The sound of the knife hitting the cutting board was sharp. "No one wants that old thing, Dad. Maybe it's time you stopped holding on to the past." My stomach turned cold. "It was your mother's," I said, my voice low. Jennifer sighed, annoyed. "Then you should have been more careful." That sentence landed like a blade. Not anger. Not yet. Just a hollow quiet spreading inside me. I took a slow breath. "Jennifer," I said again, "please, I need to know where it is." She stopped chopping, finally met my eyes. They were flat, empty of warmth. "Fine," she said. "I sold it." The words hit harder than any scream. "You what?" "We needed money for our trip," she said simply. "You said no when I asked. So I found another way. Desert Gold Pawn on Thomas Road. They gave me $800 for it. Fair deal." Her tone carried no guilt, no hesitation. Michael didn't even look away from the television as he added, "Relax, Wilbur. She's gone. Dead people don't need jewelry." Amber laughed from the stairs. "Grandpa, it's just a necklace. Mom sold it for something fun, like a vacation. You should be happy she's finally taking care of herself." I looked at her, 23, my granddaughter, and saw nothing of Eleanor in her face anymore. Just the same cold entitlement that had crept into all of them. I didn't argue. I didn't shout. I just turned and walked back upstairs, closed my door, sat on the bed with the empty velvet box in my hands and opened it again and again like a reflex. The motion steadied me somehow, or maybe it emptied me out. They'd taken the only piece of Eleanor I had left. And for what? A beach, a drink with an umbrella, a few photos on a phone. Something shifted inside me then. Quiet, deliberate clarity. I placed the box on the dresser, reached for my phone, and searched for pawn shops near Phoenix. My hand didn't shake this time. I dialed the first number. The woman on the line said no. The second shop put me on hold. The third had closed down. By the fifth call, my hope was thinning. Then came the sixth. A man's voice, calm and old-fashioned. "Desert Gold Pawn," he said. And that was the moment everything began to change. What the pawn shop owner told me next would not only rewrite everything I knew about my wife, it would expose a secret she'd hidden from me for 40 years. "Desert Gold Pawn," the voice repeated. This is Harold speaking. My throat tightened. I'm looking for a gold necklace with a heart-shaped locket. It was sold to you yesterday. There was a pause, just long enough for my heart to start pounding again. Oh yes, he said slowly. I remember that one. Beautiful craftsmanship. 14-karat gold. Old engraving inside the clasp. He hesitated, then added, Are you the husband? I am, I said, my voice unsteady. It belonged to my late wife. She passed away 3 years ago. Harold's tone softened. I'm very sorry for your loss, sir. But you should know. When I inspected the locket, something unexpected happened. I straightened. What do you mean? The locket opened, he said. Inside, there was a tiny folded piece of paper. Looked old. It had numbers written on it. Bank numbers, I think. For a moment, the world tilted around me. You're sure? I asked quietly. I didn't even know it could open. I'm certain, Harold replied. The clasp was almost invisible. I opened it carefully, didn't want to damage it. I sealed the note in an envelope for safekeeping. If you'd like, you can come by and reclaim both. How much? I asked. I paid the seller $800. It's worth closer to $1,200. 14-karat vintage craftsmanship, heart locket. But, considering the circumstances, I'll hold it for you. I didn't even hesitate. I'll pay the full $1,200. Don't sell it to anyone else. I won't, Harold said gently. Come by before 6, Mr. Davis. When the call ended, I just sat there for a long moment, the silence pressing in. A hidden note inside Eleanor's locket, something she'd never told me about. 40 years of marriage, and I'd never known it could open. How many times had I held that necklace in my hands, tracing its smooth surface, never realizing there was a secret inside. I got up, pocketed my wallet and keys, and walked past the family downstairs without a word. Michael didn't look up from the TV. Amber scrolled her phone, expression blank. Jennifer pretended not to see me. I stepped outside into the afternoon sun, feeling like a ghost leaving a house that no longer recognized him. The drive to Midtown took half an hour. The city passed by in flashes. Strip malls, gas stations, palms swaying lazily against a cloudless sky. When I reached Desert Gold Pawn, it looked cleaner than I expected. Barred windows, yes, but polished floors and glass displays gleaming under fluorescent light. A man in his 50s stepped from behind the counter. Neatly trimmed gray hair, reading glasses perched on his nose. Mr. Davis? He asked. Yes, you must be Harold. He smiled faintly. I have your wife's necklace right here. He disappeared into a back room and returned holding a soft cloth bundle. Unfolding it carefully, he revealed the locket. The gold caught the light, familiar, glowing. For a moment, I saw Eleanor again. Sunlight on her collarbone, her laugh echoing through the garden. It hit me like a wave. The woman who sold it, she was in quite a hurry, Harold said quietly. Didn't even care to negotiate the price. That sounds like her, I muttered. My daughter. Harold nodded politely but didn't comment further. He slid an envelope across the counter. The note that was inside. I didn't open it. Figured it might be personal. I handed him 12 crisp hundreds. Thank you, Harold. Take care of it this time, he said kindly. It seems like it meant a great deal. Outside, I sat in my truck for several minutes, just staring at the necklace. The gold felt heavier now, as if the metal itself carried all the words we'd never said. I turned it over, looking for the tiny clasp Harold mentioned, and there it was, barely visible like a secret meant only for her. My fingers pressed it gently. The locket clicked open with a soft metallic sigh. Inside was a minuscule scroll of paper, folded tighter than I thought possible. I eased it out carefully, unfolded it on my palm. Eleanor's handwriting, tiny and familiar. Bank of Arizona, Box 4782. I stared at the words until they blurred. Eleanor had a safety deposit box? Why? She'd never mentioned one. Never hinted at any secret account. 3 years gone, and still she managed to surprise me. I drove home in silence. The house was loud when I arrived, television, chatter, laughter. They barely looked at me as I walked upstairs, holding the necklace like a fragile truth. In my bedroom, I laid it on the dresser beside the empty velvet box. The note rested beside it, so small yet so heavy. My mind churned with questions. What had Eleanor kept hidden in that box? Money? Documents? Or something darker? That night, sleep didn't come easily. I lay awake, staring at the ceiling, the necklace resting against my chest. For the first time since her death, I didn't feel grief. I felt curiosity. And beneath that, something else. Something like resolve. By morning, I knew what I had to do. When I finally opened Eleanor's safety deposit box, I didn't just find her handwriting. I found her warning. A warning she'd hidden years before she died. Morning sunlight poured through the blinds when I finally got up. My head was heavy, but my mind was clear. The small note, Bank of Arizona, Box 4782, lay on my nightstand, catching the pale light. I stared at it as if it might start explaining itself. Eleanor had always been meticulous, predictable in her kindness and routines. She made grocery lists in neat handwriting, folded laundry with military precision, labeled everything from old photographs to holiday decorations. But a secret safety deposit box? That was unlike her. I showered, dressed in my good khakis and the blue button-down Eleanor had once said made me look distinguished, and drove downtown to the Bank of Arizona's main branch. The building loomed 10 stories high, glass, steel, and silence. As I stepped through the revolving doors, I felt small, like a man stepping into someone else's story. Inside, the marble lobby was hushed except for the faint echo of heels and whispers. A young woman at the information desk looked up with a professional smile. Her name tag read Lisa. "How may I help you today, sir?" "I need to access a safety deposit box," I said, voice low. "Box number 4782. It belonged to my late wife, Eleanor Davis." Her expression softened. "Do you have identification and her death certificate?" I nodded and handed both over. Lisa examined the papers carefully, typing on her computer. "The last access recorded was in 2019, she said. 6 years ago. No activity since then. 6 years. That meant Eleanor had opened it long before she was diagnosed. Long before we even knew she was sick. My chest tightened. "I'd like to see it, please." Lisa nodded gently. "Of course. Follow me." She led me through a secure hallway into a vault room lined with hundreds of small metal drawers. The air smelled faintly of cold metal and old paper. She used her key, inserted mine beside it, and together we unlocked box 4782. The box slid out heavier than I expected. Lisa placed it on a small table in a private room. "Take all the time you need, Mr. Davis," she said softly, closing the door behind me. For a while I just sat there. The box sat between my hands like something alive. Finally, I opened it. Inside were neatly stacked envelopes filled with cash, bundles of $100 bills tied with rubber bands. Beneath them lay a single sealed envelope, cream-colored, with my name written across the front in Eleanor's careful, looping script. "Wilbur." My throat closed up. My hands trembled as I picked it up, feeling the weight of her handwriting. I could almost hear her voice. Calm, steady, a hint of amusement when she thought I was overreacting about something small. I broke the seal. The faint smell of lavender drifted out, her perfume. The letter inside was written in the same hand that had left grocery lists and birthday notes for 42 years. "My dearest Wilbur, if you are reading this, it means I'm gone, and you've found what I've hidden. I didn't do this to deceive you, my love. I did it to protect you. You've always trusted too easily, especially when it comes to Jennifer. I saw what you refused to see. I saw how she looked at you, not with love but calculation. Please don't be angry with me for writing this. I only want you safe. This money is for you. I saved it quietly for 30 years, a few dollars from every paycheck. It's not much, but it will help you when the time comes. When Jennifer shows her true nature, and she will, I want you to have something that's truly yours. Promise me, Wilbur. Don't let guilt make you weak. You've done enough for her. More than enough. Be strong." Live your life. For you, not for them. With all my love. Forever yours, Eleanor. By the time I reached the last line, my vision blurred. I pressed the paper against my chest, feeling the faint warmth of her words through my shirt. Eleanor hadn't just left me money. She'd left me a warning. A map. I counted the cash quickly. More than $20,000 in neat envelopes. My heart thudded in disbelief. She had done this quietly, behind my back, while working night shifts and volunteering on weekends. The woman I thought I'd known completely had prepared for a future I couldn't even imagine. A future where I'd have to protect myself from our own daughter. When I finally walked out of that vault, I felt a strange kind of calm. Not peace, not yet, but direction. Eleanor had trusted me to follow her final instructions. And that meant I couldn't just sit in that house and let them take everything. The time for mourning was over. It was time to act. That night, I made my first list, not of groceries or chores, but of evidence. Because if Eleanor was right about Jennifer, then I needed to prove it. That night, I didn't sleep. Eleanor's letter lay open on my desk, her handwriting glowing faintly in the lamplight. Every word cut through the fog I'd been living in for years. She'd seen it all. Jennifer's coldness, Michael's greed, Amber's careless indifference. And she had known. Somehow she had known that I would need to defend myself long after she was gone. At dawn, I made coffee and sat at the kitchen table, the house still silent. The hum of the refrigerator was the only sound. My pen hovered over a yellow legal pad. At the top I wrote, March 17th, actions taken. Underneath, I listed the first item, document everything. Started small photographs, receipts, notes. I moved quietly, systematically, just as I'd done in my engineering days. Years of precision had taught me that truth was only as powerful as the evidence that proved it. By 6:30 a.m., I had a plan. I began with the living room, the space that had once been ours, now overrun by clutter. Michael's boots lay near the door, his jacket on the couch, beer cans scattered on the side table. I photographed each item, date-stamped them, and added them to a folder on my phone labeled House Evidence. Next was the kitchen. Every shelf was filled with food I'd bought. Every bill, the electric, the gas, the water, bore my name alone. I spread the receipts on the counter and photographed each one beside the matching groceries. Proof that they contributed nothing. Then came Amber's mess. Makeup covering the bathroom sink, hair dye stains on the counter, brushes piled in mugs. I photographed that too. In the guest room, Eleanor's old craft space had turned into Jennifer's personal closet. Clothes hung from every hook, shoes lined the walls, jewelry boxes piled high. I took pictures from every angle. By the time the sun was fully up, I'd built my first record, quiet, unshakable proof of everything Eleanor had warned me about. Over the next week, my evidence grew thicker. I pulled files from my cabinet, house deeds, tax records, utility bills. Each document told the same story. Everything in this house was mine, paid for, maintained, and owned solely under my name. On March 25th, when they all left for the day, Jennifer at her part-time job, Michael job hunting, Amber off with friends, I made my next move. I installed a camera. Arizona was a single-party consent state. I checked the law twice before ordering a discrete camera system that looked exactly like a smoke detector. I mounted it in the corner of the living room, aimed at the couch, the kitchen entrance, and part of the hallway. The feed streamed directly to my phone. For the first time in years, I felt safe, watching them without being seen, hearing the truth behind their polite voices. It didn't take long for the camera to pay off. On March 29th, I reviewed the footage after dinner. Jennifer was sitting on the couch, phone pressed to her ear. I can't believe he spent $1,200 to buy that stupid necklace back, she snapped. That's our money. He's losing it, Michael. Michael's voice came from somewhere off-screen. He's being selfish. Old people get like that. Once this house is ours, first thing I'm doing is remodeling. The place is ancient. Jennifer laughed softly. Won't have to wait too long. He's 67, what's that? 10 years left? Maybe less. I sat perfectly still, watching their faces in that grainy glow. There it was, greed, entitlement, the rot Eleanor had warned me about. I labeled the file evidence _329 inheritance.mp4 and saved it. The next few days brought more. Amber on the phone with a friend, saying, "I'll be glad when Grandpa's gone. We'll finally have the house to ourselves." Michael bragging about how family doesn't pay rent. Jennifer mocking my senior moments, saying I was probably forgetting where I kept my wallet. Each clip was dated, titled, and stored neatly on a drive hidden in my desk. By early April, I had everything I needed: photographs, financial records, video footage. But I knew evidence meant nothing without action. So I took the next step. I searched elder law attorneys, Phoenix. The third result caught my eye: Patricia Morrison, attorney at law, protecting senior rights. I called her office the next morning. The receptionist's voice was bright and professional. "Mr. Davis? Ms. Morrison can see you tomorrow at 2. When I arrived, Patricia stood to greet me. Mid-50s, sharp suit, steel gray eyes that missed nothing. She gestured to a seat across from her desk. "Tell me what's happening," she said. I placed my thick folder on her table. "My daughter and her family have been living in my house for 3 years. They don't pay rent. They've been draining my savings. And now they're waiting for me to die so they can take everything." Patricia opened the folder and began reviewing. Her face remained calm but focused. "You've been documenting?" "For weeks," I said. "Good," she replied, flipping through the pages. "You've done half my job already. We'll start with a rental agreement to establish legal terms. Once they refuse to pay, we can begin eviction proceedings, formally, legally, by the book." I nodded slowly, feeling something inside me settle, a sense of purpose. For the first time in years, I wasn't reacting, I was preparing. Patricia looked up. "Are you ready for this, Mr. Davis? These are your family members." I touched Eleanor's necklace beneath my shirt. "My wife warned me. It's time I listened to her." The day that rental agreement was served, everything exploded. And what Jennifer said to me next proved just how far she was willing to go. A week after my meeting with Patricia Morrison, the rental agreement arrived in my inbox. 3 pages of crisp legal language. I read it 3 times, slowly, making sure I understood every word. Rent, $1,500 a month. Utilities, 50% shared. Respectful behavior toward the property owner. 30-day notice in case of non-payment or violation. Reasonable. Fair. Patricia had explained her strategy. "We're not punishing them, Mr. Davis. We're establishing your rights." I clicked reply and typed, "Perfect. Proceed." On April 10th at exactly 2 o'clock, a woman arrived at my door, leather portfolio in hand, dressed neatly in a navy suit. "Good afternoon. Deborah Clean, Notary Public," she introduced herself. Jennifer appeared behind me, her voice sharp. "Who's this?" I didn't answer. I simply stepped aside and let Deborah in. She set her folder on the dining table and pulled out the papers. "Miss Thompson," she said evenly, "I'm here to serve you with a rental agreement for this property. Please review and sign." Acknowledging receipt. Jennifer snatched the document, her eyes moving rapidly over the text. Her face twisted as she reached the rent amount. $1,500 a month? Utilities? Are you out of your mind, Dad? Deborah remained professional. "You're not required to agree, only to acknowledge that you've received it." "I'm not signing anything," Jennifer snapped. "That's fine," Deborah said calmly, jotting a note on her clipboard. "Service is still considered complete." Jennifer turned to me, her face flushed with fury. "What is this, Dad? Some kind of sick joke?" "It's not a joke," I said quietly. "It's a rental agreement. You and your family have lived here for 3 years without paying a cent. That ends now." Her mouth fell open, then twisted into disbelief. "We're your family. This house is ours." I shook my head. "This house belongs to me. You're tenants now, and you'll be treated as such." Michael emerged from the living room, his expression already hostile. "You've lost it, Wilbur. Maybe you need a doctor to evaluate your mental state." "My mental state is perfectly fine," I replied, steady as steel. But you're welcome to try your luck in court. Michael stepped closer, towering over me by a few inches. You have no idea what you're starting, old man. Deborah gathered her things quickly, clearly accustomed to tension. My work here is done, she said quietly and left through the front door. The sound of it clicking shut echoed through the silence that followed. I turned back to them. You have 30 days. Either pay rent or vacate. Jennifer's voice cracked with outrage. We're not paying you anything. Then you'll need to leave, I said simply. Michael's jaw flexed. We're not going anywhere. Then the decision won't be yours anymore, I said, walking past them toward my room. I closed my door behind me, the soft click of the latch sealing more than just a room. It sealed a chapter. The following morning, I drove downtown to the bank. It was time for another step in the plan. A young manager named Marcus greeted me with polite professionalism. How can I help you today, Mr. Davis? I placed a document on his desk. Jennifer's outdated signature card from years ago. I want her removed from any and all access to my accounts, I said. Marcus frowned and typed into his computer. She hasn't made a withdrawal recently, but there was an attempt last week, April 3rd. We denied it because she didn't have valid identification. She claimed to be acting on your behalf. My chest tightened. April 3rd, the same day I'd met Patricia. Remove her access completely, I said firmly. Change passwords. New security questions. Lock it down. Marcus nodded. We'll also flag your account for potential fraud and print a security report. When I walked out of that bank, I felt something I hadn't in years. Control. 2 days later, I met with Andrew Morrison, Patricia's husband and an estate specialist. He reviewed my old will, the one that left everything to Jennifer, then quietly set it aside. Do you want to make changes? He asked. Yes, I said. Completely. Within an hour, my new will was finalized. My assets divided equally among 3 charities: the Phoenix Homeless Coalition, Memory Research Foundation, and the Arizona Elder Rights Advocacy Center. Jennifer's name was nowhere to be found. Andrew sealed the document, stamped it, and handed me a copy. Effective immediately, Mr. Davis. Thank you, I said, for helping me close an old door. Back home that evening, I heard Jennifer's voice from the kitchen. She was on the phone, her tone hushed but frantic. I don't know, Mom's lawyer maybe? There has to be a way to stop this. I didn't interrupt. I simply stood in the hallway, unseen, listening to her panic. When she finally hung up, I walked quietly back to my room and wrote a single line in my notebook. April 12th, they're scared now. The balance is shifting. And for the first time, I smiled. Not out of joy, but justice. But just when I thought I'd taken back control, Michael crossed a line. And what my camera captured that night turned my quiet plan into a war. The house had grown colder, not in temperature, but in atmosphere. It wasn't home anymore. It was a battlefield disguised as family living. Every word from Jennifer was clipped. Every glance from Michael heavy with resentment. Even Amber's laughter, once light, now carried a mocking edge. I moved carefully, quietly, always aware of where my phone and my hidden camera were recording. Patricia's advice echoed in my mind. Document everything. Don't confront, just collect. April 14th. The day started normally. I made tea, checked the mail, logged my blood pressure. A habit Eleanor had started for me years ago. The envelope at the top of the stack caught my eye. A letter from Patricia's office, marked confidential. But when I opened the kitchen drawer to grab scissors, I froze. My previous letter from Patricia was already there. Slid open, refolded, and shoved under the towels. My pulse quickened. Someone had gone through my mail. I photographed everything, the envelope, the hiding place, the faint crease across the flap. Federal offense. Mail tampering. I wrote the note immediately in my logbook and sent the photo evidence to Patricia. Her reply came within minutes. This strengthens your case, Wilbur. Keep recording. If they escalate, call me immediately. They did escalate. Faster than I expected. That evening, I walked out of my room to make tea again. Michael was standing in the hallway, broad, silent, blocking the path. "Excuse me," I said, trying to keep my tone neutral. He didn't move. "We need to talk about this rent nonsense," he said, voice low. "There's nothing to discuss," I replied. "You either pay or leave." He leaned closer, close enough that I could smell the beer on his breath. "What if I don't do either?" I met his eyes without blinking. "Then the police will handle it." He chuckled. "You think anyone's going to side with a lonely old man over his family?" That line, the way he said it, dripping with contempt, settled in my bones like frost. I brushed past him. His shoulder clipped mine on purpose, a deliberate shove that made me stumble. "Careful, old man," he said softly. "Accidents happen." I didn't answer. I just walked to the kitchen, placed the kettle on the stove, and made my tea with shaking hands. Later that night, I checked the footage from the hallway camera. There it was, clear as day. Michael blocking the doorway, his hand pushing my shoulder. The smirk afterward. I saved the clip under evidence_414_assault.mp4. The next morning, I sent the video to Patricia with a brief message. "It's time." She called within seconds. "Wilbur, this is assault. Combined with the mail tampering, we can request an emergency eviction hearing under domestic abuse and elder exploitation." "How fast?" I asked. 2 weeks, she said. "Maybe sooner. Prepare your documentation. They won't see it coming." Over the next few days, tension in the house reached a breaking point. Jennifer's behavior shifted from anger to performance. She'd knock on my door with fake tears, clutching tissues, her voice trembling. "Dad, please. I can't sleep. The stress is making me sick. We can work this out." I kept my door closed. "You have 29 days left, Jennifer." Her sobs stopped instantly. I heard her footsteps retreat. Michael tried a different tactic. Loud laughter in the living room. Taunts whispered just loud enough for the camera to pick up. "Hope he doesn't trip down those stairs one of these days," he joked to Amber, who giggled without looking up from her phone. Each clip became another nail in their coffin. On April 15th, another email from the bank landed in my inbox. "Suspicious activity alert. Unauthorized access attempt detected." Jennifer had tried again, this time claiming I'd given her power of attorney. The bank blocked it and flagged the account for elder fraud. I forwarded the message to Patricia with one word: "More ammunition." Her reply came seconds later. "They've just ended the game, Wilbur. We file for emergency eviction tomorrow." That night, I sat in my room and reviewed everything. Every photo, every bill, every recorded conversation. I thought about Eleanor's letter, the part where she'd written, "Don't let guilt make you weak. Be strong. Live for yourself." For months, I'd lived like a ghost in my own house, tiptoeing around the people who should have protected me. But now I realized Eleanor hadn't left me a mystery to solve. She'd left me a plan. I closed my laptop, placed the necklace around my neck, and whispered to the empty room, "Tomorrow we start taking it back." The next morning, I woke to the sound of voices downstairs. Jennifer and a stranger. When I stepped into the kitchen, a man in a cheap gray suit was seated at the table, briefcase open. "Dad," Jennifer said quickly, "this is Mr. Carlson, my attorney. We need to talk." Carlson stood, extended a hand I didn't take. "Mr. Davis," he said politely, "I've reviewed the rental agreement. I think there's room for negotiation." But as he spoke, I saw it. That same flicker in Jennifer's eyes I'd seen the day she sold Eleanor's necklace. Greed, not fear. And in that moment, I knew this wasn't a conversation. It was another ambush. Jennifer had brought a lawyer into my home, but she didn't realize I had already built an entire case against her. And what happened next would turn her desperation into war. "Mr. Davis?" the man repeated, his tone too calm to be honest. "My client believes this rental agreement was issued under duress. She claims you've been showing signs of cognitive decline." Jennifer sat beside him, arms folded, her expression a practiced mixture of concern and control. "Dad, I didn't want to do this," she began softly. "But you've been confused lately, forgetful." You're not yourself. For a moment I couldn't speak. Cognitive decline. The words hung in the air like a blade. Confused. I said finally, "You mean like remembering who paid every bill for this house while you lived here for free?" Carlson raised a hand as though calming a courtroom. "Mr. Davis, please. We're simply trying to avoid a family dispute. Jennifer tells me you've been under a lot of stress since your wife passed. These actions, rent demands, threats of eviction, may be stemming from grief." My jaw tightened. "Grief doesn't write rental contracts, Mr. Carlson. Lawyers do." "My lawyer." That made him pause. "You've retained counsel?" "I have," I said, opening a folder I'd been keeping on the counter. Inside were copies of the agreement, utility bills, and certified proof of ownership. I placed them neatly in front of him. "Everything here has been reviewed and notarized. You're standing on my property, discussing my rights, in my kitchen." Jennifer's calm cracked. "You can't just throw us out," she snapped. I looked at her, the way I used to when she was 16 and pushing limits. "You've got 28 days left to prove me wrong. Or to leave." Carlson exhaled slowly. "We'll be in touch, Mr. Davis." "Do that," I said. "But next time, bring someone who understands the law." He closed his briefcase, muttered something to Jennifer, and the two walked out. The moment the door shut, I leaned against the counter and let out a long breath I didn't know I'd been holding. The silence afterward felt heavy, electric. I knew this wasn't the end. Jennifer wouldn't accept defeat quietly. She never had. That night I called Patricia. She listened carefully as I explained everything: Carlson's visit, Jennifer's accusation of mental decline, the fake concern. When I finished, Patricia spoke in her calm, measured tone. "They're laying the groundwork to challenge your mental competence. It's a common tactic in elder financial abuse cases. Don't worry, we'll counter it." "How?" I asked. "I'm scheduling an independent psychological evaluation for you next week. Certified by the state. Once that report clears you, they can't use mental incapacity as a defense." "Good," I said. "I'll do it." "Also," she added, "we're filing the emergency eviction request first thing tomorrow. With the evidence you've gathered, the judge will have little reason to deny it. Stay calm, and don't engage with them unless absolutely necessary." I smiled faintly. Staying calm is easier when you've already won half the battle. The following days crawled by in tension. Jennifer barely spoke to me. Michael avoided eye contact, but I could feel the hostility radiating from him whenever we passed in the hallway. Amber continued living in her phone, though I caught her whispering once, "Mom, Grandpa's gonna get us kicked out. What do we do now?" I didn't confront them. I let the silence work in my favor. The less I said, the more they revealed. On April 18th, Patricia called with news. "The hearing's been approved," she said. "April 25th. You'll need to be there in person. I'll handle the filings. Bring your video evidence and any physical documents." "Understood," I said. After the call, I went straight to my drawer and took out Eleanor's locket. I opened it again, the hidden note still folded inside. For the first time since finding it, I smiled. "Looks like you were right, Ellie," I whispered. "You saw through them long before I did." On April 20th, something strange happened. Jennifer came into my room, holding 2 cups of tea. "Peace offering," she said quietly. I hesitated. "What do you want, Jennifer?" She sighed, placing the cups down. "You're right. I should have paid rent. We've been unfair to you. I just don't want to lose you over this." Her voice sounded sincere almost, but her hands were trembling slightly. Her eyes darted to the dresser where I kept my folder. "Sit," I said, watching her carefully. She smiled, relieved, and sat on the edge of the bed. We talked for 20 minutes about Eleanor, about the past, about forgiveness. But even as she spoke, her eyes kept flicking toward that drawer. When she left, I opened it. My folder was gone. I raced downstairs, heart hammering. The front door slammed. Through the window, I saw her backing out of the driveway, folder clutched in her hands. For a moment, rage flooded my chest, but then a cold smile crossed my face. The folder she'd taken wasn't my real evidence. It was a decoy. Every page in it was blank. Every USB drive inside empty. The real proof sat in my locked cabinet, labeled and safe. That night, I sat in the glow of the television, sipping my tea, waiting for her to realize what she'd done. At 11:47 p.m., my phone buzzed with a new notification from the hidden camera. Motion detected, kitchen. I opened the live feed. There she was, Jennifer, standing by the counter, whispering urgently into her phone. He's got something. Real documents. If we can find where he keeps them, maybe we can stop this. And then she said something that made my blood run cold. Michael says if he doesn't hand them over soon, we'll make him. That was the moment I realized it wasn't just greed anymore. It was danger. And before this war ended, someone in that house was going to get hurt. After that night's footage, I barely slept. I kept replaying Jennifer's words. Michael says if he doesn't hand them over soon, we'll make him. The way she said it wasn't frustration anymore. It was resolve. By morning, I'd made my decision. I wasn't going to wait to be threatened. I was going to be ready. I left early, before they were awake, and drove to a small hardware store on the edge of town. The man behind the counter recognized me. "Morning, Mr. Davis," he said. "Haven't seen you in a while." "I need a few things," I said. "Motion sensors, new locks, and a camera battery backup." He nodded, bagged the items without question, and said softly as I left, "Be careful, sir. You look like a man preparing for something." He wasn't wrong. Back home, I replaced every door lock, added sensors to the hallway and garage, and set up a secondary camera hidden behind the bookshelf in the living room. By afternoon, the house was wired like a quiet fortress. Jennifer and Michael noticed, of course. "What's all this paranoia, Dad?" Jennifer asked that evening, voice dripping with condescension. "You think we're going to rob you or something?" I met her eyes steadily. "You said it, not me." Michael stepped forward, smirking. "Maybe you should talk to someone, Wilbur. Get help. This isn't normal behavior." "Protecting myself?" I said. "It's more normal than stealing from your father." His smirk faltered, just for a moment. Amber, who'd been scrolling her phone on the couch, looked up. "God, Grandpa, this is exhausting. Why can't you just let it go?" I didn't answer. I just went to my room and locked the door behind me. That night, the house felt different, heavier. Every creak made me tense. Around midnight, I heard soft footsteps in the hallway. Not careful enough to be stealthy, but quiet enough to mean intent. I sat up, heart pounding, and checked the live feed on my phone. The bookshelf camera showed Michael, moving slowly through the living room, checking drawers, whispering something under his breath. A few seconds later, Jennifer appeared, holding a flashlight. They moved together like two thieves who'd forgotten they were being watched. "Check his room," Jennifer whispered. "He hides everything in there." "Door's locked," Michael hissed. "Then break it. He's sleeping." I grabbed my phone and hit record on the live feed, timestamping everything. Then I stood quietly, waiting. The doorknob rattled. Once, twice. Then a dull thud as Michael's shoulder slammed against it. The sound was enough. I shouted, "Get away from my door!" The banging stopped. Silence. Then Jennifer's voice, shrill, angry. "We just wanted to talk. You can't keep acting like a prisoner in your own house." I stayed quiet. My phone's red recording light blinked steadily in the dark. After a minute, their footsteps retreated. The next morning, Patricia came by in person after I sent her the footage. Her expression was grim. "They're escalating, Wilbur. This isn't just financial abuse anymore. It's physical intimidation. We'll present this to the judge. You've handled this with remarkable patience, but I need you to prepare emotionally for what comes next." "What comes next?" I asked. She sighed. "Once we file for the emergency order, the sheriff will come to escort them out. Expect confrontation. They won't go quietly." I nodded. "I'm ready." April 23rd, 2 days before the hearing. Jennifer was eerily calm that morning, making pancakes, humming as if the last few weeks hadn't happened. Michael sat at the table, silent. Amber was packing clothes into a duffel bag. I poured myself coffee and watched them. Something about the quiet made my skin crawl. Jennifer finally turned to me, spatula in hand. Dad, maybe we overreacted. We'll move out next week. Okay? Just, let's end this nicely. Her tone was sweet. Too sweet. I knew that voice. I'd heard it years ago, when she was a teenager trying to talk her way out of trouble. You'll move when the court tells you to, I said evenly. Her smile vanished. You really want to humiliate your own daughter in court? I didn't answer. I just took my coffee and walked away. Behind me, I heard her mutter to Michael. He's not going to make it easy. We might have to. That night, it happened. Sometime after 1 a.m., I woke to a crash. Glass breaking downstairs. I grabbed my phone, opened the feed, the living room camera flickered, showing chaos. Michael, drunk, stumbling, knocking over furniture. Jennifer shouting, "Stop it! You'll make it worse." Then I heard heavy footsteps pounding up the stairs. I turned the lock just in time. Michael's fist slammed into the door, once, twice, over and over. "Open up, Wilbur," he shouted. "You're not keeping us out anymore." I dialed 911, voice shaking. "This is Wilbur Davis, 672 Thomas Avenue. My son-in-law is attempting to break into my room." The operator stayed calm. "Stay where you are, sir. Officers are on their way." The banging continued. Then silence. I held my breath until I heard the faint sound of sirens in the distance. Moments later, red and blue lights filled the windows. Michael's voice echoed faintly from downstairs. "Jennifer, what did you do?" Then came the knock on the front door, loud. Official. "Phoenix Police Department. Open up." When the police entered that house, everything changed. Not just for them, but for me. Because what the officers found in Jennifer's hands proved Eleanor had been right all along. The flashing lights painted the walls red and blue, pulsing through the windows like a heartbeat. I stood by my locked door, clutching Eleanor's necklace in one hand and my phone in the other, still on the line with the dispatcher. 2 heavy knocks followed by a calm voice. "Mr. Davis? It's the police. You can open the door." I unlocked it slowly. 2 uniformed officers stood in the hallway, a man and a woman, both steady and alert. "Are you all right, sir?" the woman asked. "I'm fine," I said, though my hands were trembling. "They tried to break in." The male officer nodded. "We got the call. Where are they now?" I gestured downstairs. "Kitchen. Or at least they were." They descended the stairs, flashlights cutting through the darkness. I followed a few steps behind. Michael stood near the counter, face pale, eyes wide with the sudden realization that this wasn't a family argument anymore. It was a crime scene. Jennifer sat slumped on a chair, clutching a folder to her chest. My decoy folder. "Ma'am," the officer said, "put the folder down." "It's just paperwork," she said, voice shaking. "He's lying. He's trying to make us look crazy." I spoke calmly. "That folder is empty. But there are cameras in this house, one above that shelf, one by the stairs. They've recorded everything since April 1st. The female officer turned to Jennifer. "Ma'am, is that true?" Jennifer's lips trembled. "He's paranoid." Michael tried to interject. "We didn't do anything wrong. He's..." "Enough," the officer snapped. "You're both going to need to come with us to answer some questions." Jennifer's eyes darted around the room, searching for sympathy. None came. Amber appeared on the stairs, wrapped in a blanket, eyes wide with shock. "Mom," she whispered. Jennifer broke down then, not from guilt but from fear. "You don't understand. It's our house. He's trying to take everything from us." The officer handcuffed her gently. "Ma'am, please calm down. You'll have a chance to explain at the station." Michael protested as they restrained him too, his voice growing louder, uglier. "This is insane. He's setting us up." I stayed silent, watching it unfold with a kind of detached calm. I'd lived through the slow decay of family loyalty. Now I was watching it collapse completely. As the officers guided them toward the door, Jennifer dropped the folder. Papers scattered across the floor. One of the officers bent to pick them up, then froze. "Sir," she said to me quietly, "did you know there's a check inside here?" My stomach turned. A check. She unfolded the single slip of paper. The flashlight's beam caught the words, "Pay to the order of Jennifer Thompson, $15,000. Signed, Wilbur Davis." It wasn't my handwriting. The signature looked almost right, but not quite. "That's not mine," I said firmly. The officer nodded slowly. "We'll have this examined, sir. But it looks suspicious." I exhaled shakily. "She forged my signature. That's fraud." Michael cursed under his breath as the cuffs clicked tighter. "You can't prove anything." The female officer turned her flashlight toward the camera above the shelf. "You'd be surprised what people can prove." By morning, the house was quiet again. Painfully quiet. The officers had taken Jennifer and Michael for questioning. Amber had been allowed to stay temporarily until arrangements were made, but she barely spoke to me. I sat in the living room, dawn creeping through the curtains. The same space that had once echoed with laughter now filled only with silence. Patricia called at 7:30 a.m. "I just got the police report," she said. "They've confirmed 2 charges so far: forgery and attempted financial exploitation of an elder. The eviction hearing will be unnecessary. They'll be ordered to vacate immediately." I let out a slow breath. "So it's finally over." "Almost," Patricia said. "They'll still try to argue. But legally, you're protected now. You did everything right, Wilbur. Eleanor would be proud." Her name caught me off guard. I closed my eyes, feeling tears threaten for the first time in months. "She saw it coming," I whispered. "All of it." "Yes," Patricia said softly. "And she gave you the strength to finish what she started." After the call, I opened Eleanor's locket one last time. The note, Bank of Arizona, Box 4782, still lay inside, the starting point of everything. I placed it back gently, then looked around the house that finally felt like mine again. But even in that relief, there was a hollow ache, the realization that victory didn't always feel like peace. I had won, yes, but I'd lost something along the way, the illusion that family meant safety. Amber came downstairs around noon, her face pale, eyes rimmed with sleeplessness. "Grandpa," she said quietly, "Mom called from the station. She said you've ruined her life." I looked at her steadily. "She ruined her own." Amber bit her lip, tears welling up. "She told me to tell you something about Grandma." I frowned. "What about her?" Amber hesitated, then whispered, "Mom said Grandma had another letter. One she never meant for you to read. Another letter. Another secret." I thought I'd reached the end of Eleanor's story, but the truth waiting in that hidden letter would change how I remembered her forever. Amber's words hung in the air like a chill. Another letter. I looked at her, trying to read her expression. Where did she say it was? Amber shifted uncomfortably. She didn't know, just that Grandma once told her, "If anything ever happens to me, there'll be something left in the old cedar chest." The cedar chest. It had sat in the attic for years, untouched since Eleanor passed. I thanked Amber quietly. She didn't meet my eyes. "I'm sorry for what they did, Grandpa," she murmured. "I didn't know it had gone that far." "I know," I said softly. "You still have time to be better." She nodded, tears gathering, then slipped back upstairs. The attic was dim and dusty, the air thick with forgotten summers. I pulled the cord on the hanging bulb, its weak glow spilling over old boxes, photo albums, and the large cedar chest at the far wall. Kneeling, I brushed my fingers over its lid. The wood still smelled faintly of lavender and thyme. Inside were blankets, letters, trinkets from our early years, concert tickets, postcards, Eleanor's handwriting on every corner. And at the bottom, beneath a folded quilt, a small envelope sealed in wax. The handwriting stopped my breath. "Wilbur, if you found this, it means the first letter wasn't enough." My throat tightened. The paper trembled in my hands as I opened it. "My dearest Wilbur, if this reaches you, then the storm has already broken. I'm sorry you've had to face it alone. By now, you've probably discovered what Jennifer and Michael have become. I never wanted you to carry that pain. I kept my fears quiet because I hoped love might still save them. But love without truth becomes blindness. There's one last thing you deserve to know. I wasn't just saving money, Wilbur. I was protecting something larger, our story. In the same bank box, behind the cash you found, there's a second compartment, hidden under the false bottom. Inside, I left a document. The deed to this house signed over to your name alone. I had it transferred years ago without telling anyone. I knew Jennifer might try to claim it later. Now she never can. You've always been the steady one. Gentle where others would have shouted, patient when others would have broken. Don't lose that kindness even now. Justice doesn't mean hate. It means peace, the kind we earn when we choose truth over silence. And one last thing, my love. If you're still wearing my necklace, keep it close. You once asked why the locket was shaped like a heart. It wasn't for romance, it was for courage. Because sometimes, courage must protect what love leaves behind. Be free now, Wilbur. Live again. I'm with you always. Forever yours, Eleanor. When I finished reading, I sat back against the wall, tears blurring the words. All these years, she had been thinking 10 steps ahead, preparing for the moment when her love would have to become my shield. I went back to the bank the next morning, trembling as I opened the same safety box. Just as she'd said, beneath the neat rows of envelopes lay a false bottom, barely noticeable. Beneath it, the deed, dated and notarized in her name, transferred solely to me. Eleanor had protected me even after death. Weeks passed. The police case against Jennifer and Michael proceeded quickly. The forged check, the videos, the attempted break-in, it all painted a clear picture. They were convicted of financial exploitation and forgery, sentenced to probation and restitution. I didn't attend the sentencing. I didn't need to. Amber moved out soon after, renting a small apartment nearby. We spoke occasionally, cautiously at first, then more warmly. She started bringing groceries once a week, small gestures that reminded me of Eleanor's quiet grace. The house felt lighter again. I spent my mornings tending Eleanor's rose garden, evenings sitting by the window, reading her letters. Sometimes I'd catch myself talking to her. You were right, Ellie, I'd say softly, about everything. But I wish you'd trusted me sooner. The wind would rustle through the curtains then, soft as her laughter once was. One evening, months later, Amber dropped by. Grandpa, she said, setting down a bag of groceries. The house looks beautiful. You've kept everything just like Grandma did. I smiled. That's the point. She looked at me for a moment. Do you ever get lonely? I hesitated. Sometimes, but not the way I used to. She's still here, in this house in me. Amber nodded quietly. Mom called last week. She asked if you'd ever forgive her. I took a deep breath. Forgiveness doesn't mean forgetting. But yes, someday maybe. Amber smiled faintly, and for the first time, I saw something of Eleanor in her. The kindness that had skipped a generation. That night, after she left, I stood on the porch, the desert wind warm and steady. The stars above Phoenix shimmered like fragments of the past. I took the necklace from around my neck, opened it, and looked at the faded note inside. Then I whispered, "You can rest now, Ellie. You did it. You saved me." I closed the locket, slipped it back over my heart, and smiled. For the first time in years, I felt peace. Not the absence of pain, but the quiet certainty that love, even after death, still finds a way to protect what matters most. Love leaves traces even when people don't. And sometimes, the most haunting secrets aren't found in darkness, but in the quiet light of someone who still loved you enough to plan your survival.